Hang on, I need to get in the mode. Mama. Sorry, wrong one. Wrong studio. So, welcome back to another Straight Talking Property podcast.
Welcome back.
Today we have Emmanuel Ezekiel, myself, Ashley Banfield, and Chris on sound. Jimmy London is vacant again, although he did fly back in from the States yesterday. And he's looking forward to coming back, but I suspect a little bit of jet lag today.
He definitely has a bit of jet lag.
Have you spoken to him?
I got a text this morning saying he fell asleep at 4 o'clock, so he's knackered.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, hello, Jimmy. So today we're going to be talking about joint ventures. Something, again, that's very close to our hearts, if you like.
We're going to be talking about joint ventures in a slightly different vein today. We're going to be discussing it from the point of the investor, and we're going to be talking about the hot topics in terms of cash flow, the main cash flow strategies, which are basically HMO.
What's an HMO?
HMO is house of multiple occupation, is where you subdivide a house into different rooms and rent them out.
Very good.
Second one is rent to rent. That's where you take a property from a landlord and you sublet it and rent it.
Good.
Third one is service accommodation, and that's where you take a property and you start renting it like a Airbnb, Booking.com, or a hotel kind of arrangement. So those are the three main, what I call cash flowing strategies that everybody's been talking about for the last few years. And I want to give people some real pointers as an investor, what they need to be looking for and how they need to protect themselves and how they choose the people they invest with and through.
So we're looking at this from a rent-to-rent scenario, not buy to SA, buy to HMO. We're talking rent-to-rent.
It's purely a very strong cash flow positive strategy and how to actually protect yourself. So what I'd like people to do today is to get a pen and paper at hand. We're not going to be talking about what I call all the sexy bits, but for me, finances are very sexy. They're really important, and they're the basis of how you really appraise and assess any kind of deal, whether it be rent-to-rent, service accommodation, or any kind of property strategy.
Good. And I guess if people are driving, please don't grab a piece of paper and a pen. When you stop later, go back over the recording and perhaps go through it again. We don't want to cause any accidents.
That would be a very good idea.
Good. So where are we going to start?
So we're going to start with why JVs. Why would you want a JV with somebody?
So explain, what is JV for the people who don't know?
So JV is where you joint venture with somebody, where you do something together. And normally joint ventures consist of one of three things. One is if you have the money.
Yep.
Two, do you have the time? Three, the experience. So a joint venture is a combination of all of those three. So some people might have the money, but they might not have the time or the knowledge. Somebody might have the knowledge, but they might not have the time or the money. So it's putting those resources together. So basically together you actually achieve more, and you put a deal together where you both benefit from that.
I like that. Together achieve more. Team
together. Good. Everyone achieves more. So I am going to be upsetting quite a few people today.
Uh-oh.
And at the same time, I'm hopefully going to be making quite a few people happy. And the reason for that is the people that are going to be unhappy are the ones that have structured their joint ventures incorrectly. They haven't assessed it correctly. And more importantly, the people that are about to invest their money or who have invested their money know how to restructure what they've got to make it safer and just safer all round in terms of understanding the numbers and the strategy.
Completely, yeah. Because I know there are people out there who go to property courses and they're told to contact friends and family, and they do this with very limited knowledge. And we've spoken about this before. However, if they were to structure a correct joint venture agreement, they would have some protection. Is that what we're talking about?
They would have a lot of protection. They'd understand where it is. And I've talked about this before. Just think of it as a prenuptial and a postnuptial.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a marriage. It's like a relationship. You know, when you first start out in any relationship, it's great. It's amazing. However, at the end, people forget how you started, and then it gets messy. So it's really important that you have everything set out clearly at the beginning. So if things come to an end, and often they do, through just time factor, relationships, people moving on, strategies, that you have something in place allows you to understand how to exit the most cost-effective way.
Okay, so are you going to help people sort of give them some insight as to how to put a joint venture together?
I'm going to talk through all the basics, from the financials to the paperwork to the criteria they actually need. So I'm going to spell it out, and that's why I say people, if they've got a pen and paper, this is the podcast really where they need to do that so they understand the basics, and to use this as a template to go back over many times so they get the structure right.
Great. So we're educating today.
Very much educating.
Great. Okay. This is worth a fortune, by the way. I'm happy to be educated in this.
It's cost me a fortune over time, and that's why this is so important to get right.
Great. Okay.
So the first part is you need to understand the financials. So what does that mean? So the financial of the deals, how do they derive their numbers? What research have they done? What comparables do they have? And in normal business, it's called a business plan.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to a bank with a new business, they want to see what research you've done. You know, what homework have you done in terms of your business and your criteria? So when you're doing rent-to-rent, service accommodation, HMO strategy, what is your research? What are the numbers? How have you derived those numbers? It's really important that they can demonstrate to you how they've derived at those numbers, and those numbers are robust. That's first and foremost. You know, my background is finance. Numbers are really important, and knowing when somebody's talking about the numbers, you can actually tell that they actually know the numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's deal sourcer after deal sourcer and deal packager out there because they've gone on these. I mean, it's another way that they supposedly get cash flow from getting deals. But the problem is they've done a deal sourcing class or course, paid whatever they've paid, but they have no knowledge in the structure of, let's say, the strategy or how to put one deal, two deals, three deals together, because each deal is different, because each JV is different, right?
Every deal is different. Every single deal, without question, because the numbers are always going to vary. However, I'm going to give a basic template. So I've rounded up some numbers to make it easy for people to understand. And again, that's why I said you need a pen and paper handy.
I'll get one.
So I'm going to talk generically about whether it's a rent-to-rent, a service accommodation or HMO, where you pay the landlord £2,000 for the rent.
Okay, so I'm the rent-to-renter. I'll be the rent-to-renter. Let's role play.
Okay.
We like role plays.
£2,000 is the actual rent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to need 2 months' worth of security as a deposit. That's another £4,000. And you're probably going to need anywhere in the region of £4,000 to £6,000 to actually kit out the home, whether it be a HMO, house of multi-occupation, service accommodation, or rent-to-rent. So your total outlay right at the beginning is around about £12,000. It could be a little bit more, it could be a little bit less. Yeah. So
just to be clear, we're assuming that the property is unfurnished.
We're assuming the property is unfurnished. So let's work on those numbers because it's easy for people to understand once they write them down. So the total outlay is £12,000. The strategies that are being shown and taught out there is you should be aiming for a minimum of £1,000 a month in cash flow. So let's work on that number.
Done. Yep.
So let's assume that you've got £1,000 a month in cash flow, and you're going to be splitting the cash flow between yourself, who's putting the money in, and the person that's going to be running the HMO, the service accommodation, or the rent-to-rent.
Yep.
On a 75-25% basis until your capital's repaid.
So the rent-to-renter is getting 25% because they don't really want to run it for nothing, and the investor's getting 75% until such a time that their investment is paid back in full.
Yeah, so the person doing the job has to be incentivized for doing it, has to be paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, the investor needs to get back their money as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So let's assume for a minute it is this £1,000 a month, and it's a 75-25 split. So that means the person that's put the £12,000 in will get £750 a month, assuming you get full occupancy. So on the best case scenario, that's going to take roughly 16 months to get your capital back. More likely, anywhere between 16 and 22 months to take into account any voids, any repairs, and more importantly, which a lot of people forget, is the first month or so while you're building up your pipeline of clients, there's going to be a deficit, which happens for most people. It's cash flow. And
in some cases
cash flow.
I agree with that, yeah.
So In terms of your JV partner, over that period of time, they're not going to be earning a great deal either. So if there's £1,000 a month in cash flow, they're earning £250 a month. Over that sort of period, they've only earned £5,000 anyway. So there's an incentive for them to get it as cash flow positive as quickly as possible. However, you need to understand how quickly you get your money back. So the question is that a good return? So let's talk about in terms of return on investment, because ROI, whatever strategy you do in property, it's about your return on investment.
Return on investment, also known as return on capital.
Yeah. So after you recoup your capital back, you've got around about 14 to 16 months of positive cash flow on a 50-50 basis once you've repaid it. So let's say we work on worst case scenario, 14 months. If you've invested the 12,000, you're going to get 500 out of that 1,000 every month for 14 months. That works out to 7,000. So let's say it's a 3-year agreement that you've got on a company let. So over 3 years, you're going to divide that 7,000 by 3, which is £2,333.33
recurring
per year. That roughly equates to between 19 and 20% ROI. That's still a pretty good return on your investment over a 3-year period. If somebody was going to offer you 20% return per annum on your money, you'd say that's a good return.
Good. I'd say that's awesome.
It's a great return, right?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
But you have to understand how those numbers are actually worked and derived. But more importantly, you're not going to get any return on your capital or your investment for between 12 and 16 months. But you have to be aware of that. Mm-hmm. Most people aren't aware of that, and that's where they fall over. That's where they get disappointed. That's where disagreements actually occur.
Just to be clear, you're getting a return fairly quickly, but what you're talking about is you're not getting a return positive your 12 grand on top of your 12 grand.
Correct. Yeah. So it's how quickly you get your money back. Yeah. And then on top of your capital, how quickly you start getting a return on your investment. Because once your capital is repaid, it's all profit.
Correct. Yeah.
But you've got to get your capital back, and you need to understand how quickly or how slowly that capital is going to come back to you. But more importantly, we're going to be talking about how you protect yourself during that process.
Good. That's important.
So 2 things. 1, how do you reduce your risk? And more importantly, how do you increase your cash flow? So I'm talking here about worst case scenario, but there are some best case scenarios. So in terms of reducing your risk, I'm going to talk about in more detail. But in terms of increasing your cash flow, if you're the investor putting the money in, there are ways that you can reduce your capital outlay. So one of them is you take the furniture on a 3-year contract. What does that mean? It means that you can actually pay for the furniture out of your monthly income to reduce your capital expenditure, which means your return on cost is far greater and your profit is far greater.
So we're reducing the 12 grand by the scenario that we used here was 6 grand for the furniture.
Correct. So your break-even time would come down to probably about 8 months.
Okay, good.
So your profit is going to increase dramatically over that period of time. So there are ways, and I'm not talking about all the different ways. I'm just giving a few different ways of how you can do that. There's also a way you can actually pay an insurance for the deposit to the landlord and reduce that even more. Mm-hmm. So you can keep reducing your capital outlay. I'm talking about here worst case scenario, but now we're talking about best case scenario. So you can actually take your furniture on a 3-year contract. Yep. You can actually take an insurance scheme, which is roughly 1 or 2 weeks rather than 2 months' rent. That's dramatically different in terms of your sort of cash flow.
And let's be clear, the insurance policy would be added to the cash flow as well.
100%.
Yeah, just reduces the initial outlay.
So
that would reduce that by another 4,000, because the deposit that we're looking at here was 2 months' rent, wasn't it, up front?
We were. So you could reduce the 12,000 to somewhere in the region of 3. Fantastic. So that's a big difference. And again, if you don't understand the numbers, you don't understand the risk and reward ratio, you might put all your money in when you don't actually need to do so. Mm-hmm. So hopefully there's a few tips here to help people with that. I'm all about cash flow.
Yeah, of course, aren't we all?
And increasing income and reducing your risk. So I hear this HOT all the time, which is
HOTS.
Heads of terms. And this gets bandied about all the time. And the question is, are heads of terms legally binding?
I would say no.
Correct. They're not legally binding. They're exactly what they say. There are heads of terms, and a heads of terms are a prequel to a legal document. What it basically puts down is the agreement between two people of how you'd like the legal structure to form and take place. However, I'd probably say 90% of people rely just on the heads of terms and do not transfer it into a legally binding document. And the main reason for that is, one, they don't understand the heads of terms is not a legally binding agreement, even though you both sign it. But more importantly, they don't invest in a lawyer to draw up the agreement to make sure both sides are protected. This is the investor and the person running it for you, whether it be service accommodation, HMO, rent-to-rent. That's really important. And as I said to you, it's always great in the beginning when you've got a new idea, you've got a new property, it all seems amazing. But when things go wrong, that's when you want things to actually be in place. And I'm always about managing risk, managing cash flow, and protecting both myself and my investors. I do this for every single investor that invests with me.
It's probably a good thing for an investor to say, what if? Yeah, and get that taken care of in writing in the contract.
Unfortunately, most investors don't know the questions to ask. And the reason why they don't ask the question to ask, because they're only looking at the cash flow element. They're not understanding fully the risk and reward ratio. So in terms of choosing a joint venture partner, how do you choose a joint venture partner? How do you assess a possible deal and who you should choose as a joint venture partner? Well,
so hold on a second. So are we talking from let's call it the renter, looking for a JV partner, selecting a JV partner, or are we talking how a investor should select a JV partner?
Now we're talking specifically how an investor should choose the right JV partner.
Good.
And this is really important. So I believe, and I've heard it many times even from my mentor, there's a saying that says, success leaves clues. Now, they don't have to be already successful in rent-to-rent, service accommodation, or HMO. However, they've had to be successful in some other areas. And let me explain why. If they've been successful in another area, they will have focus, commitment, dedication. They will put what it takes to become successful. They'll have the ingredients to be successful.
The resourcefulness.
They will have the resourcefulness. And there's a couple of people that you've worked with. I'm going to pick one guy out who, his name's Tony.
Tony!
He's probably one of the most humble guys that you meet. However, when you speak to him and you see what else he's done in his life, and I relate a lot of stuff to sport. Now, this guy is a black belt karate.
Yeah, not just that. He's like 7th, 8th degree black belt. Yeah.
He's a different level. Now, to go through those levels, to have that focus, determination, commitment on a consistent basis, you know he has the ingredients to do whatever it takes to be successful. It's a formula.
Yeah.
Now, if you're successful in one area, you can mimic and duplicate that in lots of different areas. So those are one of the things you want to look at. What else have they done that they've been really good at?
Can I tell you a little story about Tony? So I joint venture with Tony, and we've both mentored Tony as well. So Tony's probably listening to this, driving his car to London to another karate expo or comp, and he's in his, shall we say, late 40s to early 50s. Shall we say that? And we'll stick with the late 40s. And he's fully dedicated to what he does. And I joint ventured with Tony about 4 years ago for the first time in service accommodation. And he runs all of our properties in Cambridge. And nobody knows this, but I'm going to share it now. I've actually just given Tony 3 of those properties for himself. Because
Amazing.
He's done such a great job, and not everyone gets rewarded as they should. And so I decided that after all his time in service, that Tony deserves a bit of a reward for all his hard work. And he's made us a lot of money in there, and he still continues to do it. So that's what we've done with Tony. And Tony's now taken a whole different mindset because he has full ownership of something.
So I want to talk about a couple other people. So Jimmy's not here today, but I do want to talk about Jimmy.
Okay, that's good. Probably good that we talk about him when he's not here.
And why I believe Jimmy has been so good in these strategies. And if you look at Jimmy's history in nightclubs, he was very successful in that industry.
He had the biggest nightclub in London.
So he's managed lots of different people. He's managed staff. He's got systems and structures in place. He's been successful in another area, and all that he's done, he's transferred those skill sets into what he's doing now with service accommodation and the HMO strategy. So again, looking at what they've done previously, that's somebody that you invest in. If you go to Dragon's Den, they don't invest in the idea, they invest in the person.
Absolutely.
It's about the person.
That's exactly right. It is. They could have the best product in the world, but if they don't want to work with you,
Correct.
See you later.
And even yourself, Ashley,
oh, no.
before you started on the service accommodation and the rent to rent, you were already a successful landlord.
Yeah.
Doing HMOs and buy-to-let. You'd already proven something. You'd come from nowhere. So if somebody's going to invest with you or through you, you have a track record. You've proven it. And you've done it in other businesses. So that's what I'm talking about. Look at the person. Look what they've done in other areas. If they haven't been successful in something else, get the hell out of there. They're not going to be successful, however much they say they are.
Yeah.
The risk to reward ratio is too great. You want to invest in people that have the drive, the determination, the focus, but not necessarily had the vehicle before to be able to be successful. Property can make you successful if you have the right ingredients to start with.
Well, like Jimmy, as you say, 4 years ago he had no HMOs. Now he has 31. He owns 4 of them and 2 hotels and a pub. And of course, I understand that JVing with Jimmy's been good because we're JVing on a pub and a hotel, and at the moment we are pleasantly shocked by the amount of bookings that we're getting for the hotel above. It's unbelievable. Jimmy's sending me stuff every day, oh, look at the size of this booking, and we're a hotel in Tottenham, and Tottenham, God bless you, Tottenham. It's not a place that's known for its delicacy, shall we say.
No, you could say that.
Yeah. I mean, you have properties in Tottenham too, right?
I have quite a few properties in Tottenham. Yeah. It's and with all the infrastructure going in, that's going to be a really...
We don't want people to know that.
Yeah, we do.
We want to be the only hotel.
We want people to be making money.
Absolutely, yeah. With the right joint venture partner.
So let me help people a few more different areas of how they can assess a joint venture partner. And again, I would follow what the banks do, what a mortgage lender would do to check the credentials of somebody that you're joint venturing with. So for me, one thing I'd like them to produce for me is their credit file. If they can't produce their credit file, that's telling me there's something that I shouldn't know about in their history. It also shows me that they've been able to keep to their commitments, keep things on time, and they have, even if they haven't got a lot of credit, they're credit worthy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They know how to manage money and cash flow.
Let's just bear in mind, some people have, let's say, a CCJ because maybe they moved house and didn't pay the power bill or whatever. So everything else is intact. Would you look at it as a little bit of flexibility or not?
I would always look at the credit file first and then understand if there's something in the credit file. So CCJs, I've had a CCJ. I've had a CCJ because the council sent the council tax to the wrong address. I travel a lot. Yeah. I had it registered, but I got it overturned. So the answer is all of us have every now and again might have a blip or a hiccup, but it's looking at it, a credit file gives you 6 years. If something's a problem 4 or 5 years ago, it's very different if it happened last week.
Yeah.
So it's understanding and looking at it objectively. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's one of the first things. The second thing is, depending on how much I'm going to be investing, I might want to see their asset and liabilities. Do they have anything behind them if something were to go wrong? Mm-hmm. One of the other things I might like, if they haven't got a great asset and liability, who would back them? Who might be their guarantor? Mm-hmm. So I want to look at how a bank would look when I'm investing, depending on how much I invest. If I invest a small amount, it's not as important if I invest a huge amount. So if I'm investing somebody that's going to do 10 flats and the capital outlay might be 50, 60, 70,000 pounds, I'm going to have a different risk-reward ratio profile of how I need to assess them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. and perhaps raising the percentage that you get on return.
Yeah, I need to know, what recourse do I have if something was to go wrong? Do they have income in other places? So for me, it's important they have income elsewhere. So they're not just relying on this income. If they're just relying on this income, it can be difficult if the cash flow. So if the cash flow negative, that means, guess what? I'm the investor. I've got to put more money in. I need to know that. I need to know what else. I also want to know, can they put some money into the deal? If an investor's not prepared, or a JV partner's not prepared to put at least 10% of the costs in, they've got no skin in the game.
No hurt money.
Yeah. Even as a developer, any development I do, the bank still wants to see my hurt money going in, 10%. If I'm doing a development that's costing 3 million, they want to see 300k of my own money. That's a lot of money. So if you're doing a deal that's only £3,000, £300 not a great deal of money. No, they've got to have a small amount of skin in the game. So that's another thing I want to do. How's a loan going to be treated? So the legal document, the legal framework is, how's it repaid? What are the terms of the payment? Is there any interest on the money? Every joint venture is slightly different. So you need to understand the mechanics of when you're investing, how you want to invest it. So there's a saying, hopefully we've covered quite a lot here. And the saying says, to know and not to do is the same as not to know. Now that we've given you the framework of what you should be doing, how to understand it, nothing's stopping you going back. If you've done a JV and you haven't put all of these things in place, actually formalise it properly. If you've got a great JV partner, they're going to say 100% no problem. If you haven't got a great JV partner, they're going to choose every excuse not to want to put this legal framework in place. So I want to give you, I am giving you some tips and tricks of how to protect yourself going forward, to go back and protect yourself on anything that you've done. But to make sure each and every investment that you do, you analyse it like a bank would do in terms of business. Rent to rent, service accommodation, HMO. It's a business.
Absolutely, 100% business.
It's a business.
It must be treated like a business.
It's about numbers. The people that you're in relationship with are the people that you're going to be working with on a consistent basis. And if you get this right, you can duplicate this over and over again. You'll get better at it. Why am I so passionate about this? Well, I didn't know this stuff when I started out. Did I lose a lot of money? Yes, I did.
Okay, so hang on. I didn't think you were going to mention that. So let's put it out there. I know the story, and this has happened a few years ago, and you had a great JV partner. It all started out very well, and you had some knowledge, and then you tell the rest of the story.
Okay, so I'm pretty good with numbers and working out if the numbers work. So I did a joint venture with a builder on a number of different developments. I worked all the numbers made a lot of sense. I invested over $1 million in those particular developments and projects.
Of your own money?
Of my own money, just my own money.
Yeah.
I invested over £1 million. However, what I didn't understand at the time fully is the proper legal framework. The shareholders agreement, the company structures, the memorandum and articles. I didn't have that in place. And it would be fair to say that £1 million was embezzled from the various developments. There was about 6 developments at the time. And it all happened 2007-8. Guess what? Property crash.
Yeah.
The other directors in the company that took money out of the company for their personal use went bankrupt. There was nowhere for me to actually go.
So hang on a minute. Let's just go back there, because I've heard a few of these in recent times. JVs with builders, etc., and architects or whatever it might be. So you're telling me that the builder has taken your money and they've paid themselves a wage?
Yeah, so
more or less.
So the builder paid themselves a wage, but not only that, they inflated the certificates for materials that were on site, foundations were there. So it's lots of different things. Okay. I was very busy in my other business at the time. I had a very large mortgage business. I was focusing on that business, wasn't there on a regular basis. So I relied on the bank's monitoring surveyor, which was the wrong thing to do at the time. So my good judgment comes from bad judgment or bad experience. That's how you develop, you get better. And in the last year or so, this is becoming more and more prevalent. And I really and passionate about stopping people making the same mistake by believing there's this pot of gold at the end of the rainbow and not taking the measures and the steps to protect themselves. There's lots of people that are active in social media, and it's bullshit.
So hang on a minute.
They have no asset. They have no liability. It's a cloud of smoke. They're blowing smoke up their own backside to make you think they're more successful than what they are.
Yeah, because Facebook, it should be bullcrap book sometimes.
Yeah, I have a saying,
get.
Believe 10% of what people tell you. You know what? Including me. You know, try this stuff out. You know, some of my great mentors say, anybody that gives you a great idea, try it on like a coat.
Yeah.
See if it fits, if it works for you. And then make your own judgment. But make sure you protect yourself. When everybody's trying to give you a great opportunity, because they're all great opportunities.
So I don't want to mention names or companies or anything like that. I just want to give people a heads up. So you say in the last 12 months, a lot of this has been going on. What are we talking about here? Are we talking a couple of grand? Are we talking 10, 20? Are we talking 100, 200 grand or $1 million or 2 million? What
We're
deals?
talking anything from 10,000 up to millions. And I'm talking about people, and this is why I get really angry. People are putting in their pension fund. They're putting in their parents' funds. They're putting their children's funds. They're not taking the necessary measures to protect themselves and protect their family and to protect their money. It takes you a long time to earn it. It can take you seconds to lose it if you don't have the right framework in place. And I keep saying I'm so passionate about this. Our industry needs a radical shake-up from people trying to get people to part with their money. Part with your money for the right investment. There are great opportunities out there. There are great investments out there, but do it with the people that know what they're doing, that have the knowledge, that have the expertise, have the integrity, the honesty to make sure. And if your person you're investing with isn't telling you about this stuff, they're the wrong person in the first place. You want them to be telling you this is what you should be having in place. This is how you protect yourself. Then you know you've got the right person you want to invest through.
I've got enough snake oil thanks to last me a lifetime, yeah.
100%.
So you've given us some great tips there and kind of the basics for a template, I guess, in interviewing the rent-to-renter.
I've given a few bits, but you know what? If people have some questions, they want some help, send some emails in. Get people to ask us what else they want to know.
Yeah. And on that, the email is askus@straighttalkingproperty.com.
Yeah, listen, I'm very straight talking, no bullshit, straight to the point.
That's why we get on, I think.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay, yeah. Chris has just flashed up his hands like 2 big fives. What does that mean?
I think he's got 10 grand to invest.
Oh, right. That was easy. We're not going to sign any JV agreement here, mate. So, what's your give your advice in a couple of sentences? So let's look at it like this. I'll be John Smith, rent-to-renter. Hey, Emmanuel, how you going? Yeah, I've got this great thing. It's a deal. It's going to make £1,000 a month. I need 10 grand. You know, have you got 10 grand you can chuck in?
The answer is depends on what the financials look like. So first and foremost, I need to see your business plan, how you've derived at your numbers, what research have you done, what experience have you got. If you just come off a course, I ain't investing in you. I might invest through you if your mentor's in the background that's going to support you all the way through. So I know that they've underwritten the case at the same time.
Yeah, and you've also written a solid business plan, not a 1 or 2 pager.
Yeah.
I mean, when we take people on, and we've done this for a few years now in the mentorships, they spend about 5 to 10 days writing their business plan, going through it, the due diligence on everything. And it's essential to do that. And they always, not always, but some of them say, why do we have to do this? It's such a lot of work. As I said, if you need finance, and I know that my good friend Emmanuel Ezekiel, if anyone's like him, he's going to want to see your business plan and he's going to read every word from front to back. So
let me just put it slightly different take on it. Let's imagine we're on a dating app.
Ooh.
And you're on the dating app. You know, I'm looking to match up with somebody and I see this amazing profile, this great description of all the things I have, this amazing picture. And then I make a decision based on that description and that picture. And then
Probably more so the picture.
And then I get to meet you, and hell no. So
where's your son?
So one of the things, you want to be meeting the person you're going to invest with, see what they're like. Mm-hmm. I'd even go to their home, see what their home is like. If it's cluttered, they're going to be cluttered. If they're neat and tidy and structured, they're going to be neat and tidy structure.
You know what I do also? I assess their social media. If they've If they've got some crazy, wild things going on social media, probably they're not the person that they're saying they are. So beware, we inspect your social media.
Yeah, so that's a great idea. A couple of other bits I would do. I'd always want to look at the property that they're talking about. Don't just look at the pictures. Go and visit yourself. Understand the investment you're going in. It's not about trust. You need to understand what you're investing in. You need to look at that. Yeah. I'd also probably want to get a couple of references for people that have worked with, ideally professional people that can tell me what these people are like.
So not just a character reference.
Not just a character reference.
You want to know what their work ethic is like.
Yeah, I want to know who I'm getting into bed with. You know, this is a 2, 3, 4, 5 year project. You want to know who you're investing with, what they're really like, what their honesty, integrity, values. That's really quite important.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Well, I'll tell you what, it's been good. It's been an eye opener. Thank you, Emmanuel. Been awesome again.
Listen, it's my pleasure.
You're a fountain of knowledge.
It's really important that people take this on board. They understand it. If they don't understand it, send some questions in and we'll go through in more detail, go through slowly, but protecting their family, their money, their hard-earned savings.
Agreed.
It's really important they get this structure right.
Yeah, and if you can't remember the email, ask us at straighttalkingproperty.com. Just put Wealth and Success Academy into any social media and you'll find us. Or look for me, Ashley Banfield, look for Emmanuel Ezekiel, or look for Jimmy London. We're all on there. And by the way, on Tuesday, March 3rd, is it?
Tuesday, March 3rd.
March 3rd, you are talking at the...
I'm talking about Monument PPN.
At the Monument PPN,
and that'll be with my Broadwing hat on.
Yeah.
Talking about Broadwing and also doing some really cool...
Broadwing Homes.
Doing some cool learning games for people to actually learn through playing, through having fun.
So this is more sort of financials towards development, is that right?
It's about financial to do with all areas of property, not just development. It's the basic principles and also how you become great at anything I'm going to be covering.
Yeah, okay. Now, is there a link on your Facebook page for the Monument Talk?
There is. It's PPN Monument. If you go on my Facebook page, Emmanuel Ezekiel, you'll see...
Emmanuel with an I.
Emmanuel with an I, so IMMANUEL, and Ezekiel is EZEKIEL. It's a very difficult name. So if you search it on there, there's PPN Monument. There's only a few places left. I think there's about really 170 people already registered. There's only about 20 odd places left.
Yeah, and it's at the Steel Yard nightclub in London.
Right by Cannon Street Station.
Okay, so nice and close. And it's obviously run by a good friend of ours and a great mortgage broker, Michael Primrose.
He is the property guy, the property finance guy.
That's it. That's what he is. That's his tag, isn't it?
That's his tag.
Good. So before we go, I need to say hello to my mum, Christine in Australia, and my dad.
Hi, Mum.
And my dad, Roy, because I know that she listens to these. She doesn't do anything in property, but I know she listens. And,
Go on, mate.
She's having a bit of a fight at the moment with cancer. So, just want to say good luck. Sending you lots of love, Mum.
Good luck. Wish you better. Speedy recovery.
She's
thinking of you.
Super positive, fighting it like you wouldn't believe. And I've never seen my mum fight so hard. So, I look forward to seeing you soon.
See you guys. On that note, wish Ashley all the best and his mum, and we hope to hear from you soon.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye.
Bye.